Okay, I'm gonna call tonight's select board meeting to order at 7:05. This is Town of Newcastle Select Board meeting for Monday, September 22nd. Are there any amendments to the agenda? No.
Yes.
We have a public hearing,
The journalists.
Yeah, DA first, yeah.
so we're gonna do that first.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so before the meeting, we're gonna have a public hearing for general assistance. Um, general assistance appendices, so, we'll start that portion of the meeting. Is there any comments from the public? Excuse me.
This is an annual like inflationary update that.
Yeah, so every year, to explain this a little bit, every year we have to update or reassign our general assistance values, and there's a slight bump according to the state sort of escalation. And all we are doing tonight is accepting what the states provide us for these values. So the town does have the opportunity, if we so wish, to increase that value. But there's a chart of values that has been included in the packet for tonight. And so it's usually something we run through every year or have to. And if there's any changes, we will hear them, but we have to hold a public hearing on this. They're doing so. Okay. Any from the board?
Noticing that Lincoln County is the highest value of all rural counties in the state
For rent.
for rents
I
and
guess
all of
that's the
that.
total.
So that must mean our cost of living is probably the highest
Yeah, no, we
for a
are the,
rural
for sure.
county in the state.
Okay, hearing no other comments, I'm gonna close the hearing for general assistance appendices. Okay, I'll go back to call to order the select board meeting for September 22nd, and it is 7:08 PM. Okay, are there any amendments to the agenda?
I would like to add under new business, talk about CLC ambulance board appointment. Our current person is looking to retire from that.
Okay, so 7B, new appointments. Any other changes? Okay, hearing no others, moving on to item 3. Meeting minutes from September 8th.
I'll move to accept the minutes as presented.
Second,
Ben, the motion, Rufus on a second. Any comments?
I just have one, the benches. I think if it's reported in there that I said they have no value. No, they actually have a decent amount of value.
No.
Been Googling them. So, I mean, I had before the last meeting, they do have some monetary value, so we'll proceed, but with what we want to do with them, but they do have value.
Okay. So we just captured what was discussed though, right? I mean, at the time we.
But if we can to dispose of them
Yeah,
properly, well.
so is there an amendment or no?
Just that I would just like it to strike out that they do not have value. They do have value.
Okay, have some value.
Yep.
Okay, any other discussion points? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor with the motion and amendment to change the language according to Karen's comment.
Yep.
All those in favor? Okay, 5 in favor, and that motion passes. Are there any public comments not on the agenda?
Can I just make a comment about those benches?
I would love it, yeah.
That's great. Yeah, but Roger would, well, can we see Roger?
He should, Roger, come up.
Can you come up, Roger, please?
Those benches there, Vern Bernier, do you know him?
I do. Mhm.
He has like a museum of
Yes.
old artifacts. I didn't know if you spoke to him and see if he.
I have not talked to him. I could. I know they have benches like that around the perimeter of their building as well, but he might know the history. Yeah, I could check with him.
And they might be interested, to display there or something.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, that's a good point, Roger. Yep, I'll make note of that. I'll send Vern an email or call him.
Are those curved or straight?
They're straight,
Hmm.
7 foot and 9 foot.
Okay, any other comments? Not on the agenda, okay. Hearing no others, we're gonna move on to item 5, so presentations by special guests. So tonight, we're gonna hear presentation from our town manager and maybe one other. And the presentation is regarding Public Works Working Group. This is basically an update to something that was put into motion back in the spring, in May. The board moved to create a joint working group with the town of Demascata to assess public works. So that's what this topic is, and I'll turn it over to Kevin for his presentation.
Well, thank you. My counterpart in Damascata is unfortunately waiting for his partner to get home to take care of their little one, so he's not here with me. But there are 2 members of the working group in this room with me here. Thomas Gassenbader and Rufus Percy have served as Newcastle's representatives on it, along with Andrea. I don't remember her last name, and Daryl. Frazier, thank you. I do know these folks. It's sad of me to not remember them right this second, but the 6 of us, along with a consultant who also serves as the main local roads road ranger, Paul Brown, has sort of served as a sounding board consultant role for a lot of this and has attended those meetings with us. So I would just want to provide an update for the working group, and I have some, where do we want to go? What are we going to do next? Sort of next steps to discuss with this board tonight. So where we are now, we've met 4 times since our May workshop with Damascata. We met on May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. And I'm really proud of this select board and making dinner for everybody. So that was very nice of you. And then July, so we met on July 9th, we met on July 30th, August 21st, and September 15th. There's a link to all of the information related to all of these meetings are available on the Damascata's website. They dedicated a page specifically for this. It also includes links to the video recordings of all of them too. So if anybody really wants to go back and rehash what we've talked about, they're welcome to. But what were our initial thoughts? So we started weighing the pros and cons of a joint department versus continuing as using contractors for all of our services related to public works. From a winter's maintenance perspective, so we can do this, we identified that we could do this work in-house for a little bit less than we currently contract out. But also the benefits, we're able to right size some plow trucks specifically for narrow dead end roads. And when there isn't a snowstorm, we still have the crews available to do things like trimming trees, continuing ditch work, and shoulder seasons. The cons, it's slightly less efficient snowplow routes because you can use one big truck to get down some of those smaller roads, but instead you're sending a second smaller truck to take care of those smaller roads based on what we were able to do. There's a shallow bench of employees and vehicles in the event of illness or vacancy. Newcastle specifically, we currently work with a contractor who has a very deep bench of employees and equipment in case things break down, or if he has illnesses, he can always call somebody else on it. So Newcastle benefits greatly from that access. If we're on our own, it's a much smaller crew and if somebody's out. I don't necessarily want to be plowing roads, but I don't think Andy does either. And then we limited vehicle maintenance repairability. You know, unless we end up hiring a laborer who has experience and is doing it, that's gonna continue to be a challenge. So also now looking at it from the summer maintenance perspective, pros, we could accomplish a lot of on-call tasks much more efficiently and quickly with having crews taking care of potholes, clogged culverts, other community needs or events. You know, we have an election and we need some equipment moved around, so it's easier to call our own staff than to try to hire a contractor for time and material. More time and effort with ditching and culvert replacement, and more time and effort with tree trimming. Maybe he is here. The chair there for you, buddy. Sorry. You all know Andy Dord, town manager in Damascus. You know my board. All right. And then the other pro would be being able to provide some assistance with facility needs. Like I mentioned, just an extra hand to lift things. I want to thank Thomas. He's been very helpful in helping move some things around the last few months, but and Ben too. There's batteries in the back. I believe you and Trevor moved those here. Some cons of some summer maintenance perspective, limited vehicle maintenance repairability. Again, just as the same winter. One town will have more responsibilities on the human resources side. Everything from the payroll aspect to managing conduct, etc., hiring. And with the acquisition of land and facility needs, costs will initially be higher. And the long-term advantage, the long-term average annual cost increases of owning and maintaining a facility and equipment and having staff versus contracting out breaks even and eventually saves money over time. So I tried to map that out and I'll get to it in a minute, but our recommendation, the pros outweigh the cons. So we look for a strong interlocal agreement that would significantly penalize any party that tries to separate from the agreement, contain a fair and equitable cost sharing formula, has an approval process for annual work plans, and has an outline process for creating and amending policies and procedures for the department. Next step would be to create a joint public works department with an initial 7.5 FTEs. I know Andy has shared with me that a little nervous about that. You know, again, that gets to that point of someone's sick or two people are sick, or we have a vacancy and someone's sick. Who's going to take care of that other route? And then identify at least a 5-acre parcel for facility needs and an additional site for sand salt storage. Ellie and her camera. It's all right. We looked at a couple of different options for a organizational structure. One was the interlocal agreement, which I think Andy and I specifically prefer, and the working group agreed. I believe you guys agreed. Generally,
Like those.
yeah. The other option is a council of government. There's an example already in our area, the transfer station in Noblesboro and Noblesboro and Jefferson. That's a council of government agreement, which is basically like they've created a separate board that oversees that operation. And therefore the two separate boards of Noblesboro and Jefferson are not managing that aspect of it. So in this instance, the interlocal agreement is joint exercise of power. So it would be the select boards would ultimately make the decisions about the work plan, for example, collectively. So we'd look to have a joint meeting to address the work plan or address certain matters of establishing aspects of this. All of this would be written out in the agreement, which we haven't done yet because we're here. The next tier down would be your managers, and then addressing the relationship between the road commissioner would still have to be figured out, but that road commissioner would then have a staff of 7 or 8, 7 others. Provide a construct for how the interlocal agreement would be formed, and then we had worked to find some examples of interlocal agreements. Damascus and Newcastle already have 2 examples of that. Our shellfish conservation ordinance and our harbor management ordinance are two examples of an interlocal agreement that the two towns have agreed to have the same ordinance to address shared matters. We also pulled up Bar Harbor and Mount Desert Police Services. Right now, they share one chief and a deputy chief. They have their own departments. They share one chief and deputy chief. They're having issues with that because every union contract cycle, one pushes for more and then the other one feels slighted. And so the other one pushes for more and the other one feels slighted. So I'm not, and they're looking to change it. They're looking to create one department eventually to do this too. So, you know, I'd advocate for an example where all of the employees belong to one town. But the responsibilities of the day-to-day work is a joint discussion and decision. I still have to work out how the managers address staffing issues. That will come with a little more time. But an example that we found that really seems beneficial is the Mapleton, Castle Hill and Chapman General Administration and Public Works. Here's a snapshot of their cost formula. They share general government cost sharing, everything from their town manager to their finance to their HR, all of that shared at that top level, and that's based on population and state valuation. And separately, they cost share their highway department by the average of the number of winter miles, which are essentially state aid roads, and summer miles, which are local roads. So the average of what they have to do for the winter and what they have to do, what they're responsible for in the summer, that average determines those three towns' share of the highway cost. So the model works. They've been doing it for,
It's been a few decades.
yeah, I was gonna say 20 years at least. So, you know, we started looking at what are the options for a formula? Obviously, Daryl was very excited about square miles of the town of Newcastle is much larger, so therefore we should pay a lot more. I told him that's probably not going to fly with Newcastle, so I don't know what is the answer at this point. It's more sort of like, let's flush this out. I'm certain it's not a 50-50, especially given the number of miles that Newcastle is responsible for maintaining versus Damascotta. And it may end up being that a 60-40 split. I'm not sure, but I just put this out there as sort of a starting place, and it's a negotiation with the two boards about that agreement.
We don't have a lot of sidewalks to show.
We don't. So there's a good argument. Miles of sidewalk. We should put on this spreadsheet. What do you think?
To be adjusted in the future.
Hopefully we have some sidewalk.
We try to.
So are you.
Right.
Right. So
That's right.
the share will be greater on their end. All right. I'll move on from this one for now. This is an exercise that I want to thank Thomas for. He looked at salt application and sort of the reference chart that's used by the DOT. Understanding, you know, we do have some we don't have priority 1, do we? No, we have priority 2 level corridors. Our state roads, state aid roads are priority 1.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Those are-
Sheepscut and
Mills.
Road, which Joneswood Road, all that, 215, all of that would be priority 1. There is an expectation that there's a little more salt that has to be added to those types of roads. And looking at the application rates versus miles you can treat, Thomas was able to figure out that we need about 6 trucks. There's 3 of them that would do 15-mile routes. These are some of the larger roads with larger truck. And then 3 routes that are in the 6.5 to 6 mile range. And ideally, these are also the crews that are helping with the downtown cleanups too, because the other ones are on the road quite a bit. So that's 6 plow routes, 3 at 15-mile routes and 3 at those 6-mile routes. Can it be done with the single axle dump and a F550? You have a foreman available for material loading, absentees and emergency needs, and a road commissioner is back up to the foreman and additional absentees. It's pretty tight, but it's what we were able to come up with in terms of financing. So this is 7.5 FTEs. You have 7 full-time and then 1 half-time equivalent. And we have our recommended winter equipment needs. this helped drive sort of our understanding of what the equipment costs might be in order to determine our winter costs. So additional benefits, tree trimming, ditching, facility maintenance, winter operations comparison, our current budget without, this chart shows without facility debt, with facility debt. Obviously, it's gonna be really hard to operate without facilities, so just showing you there is savings, there is some cost savings. Adding a facility to this. Between what we're currently paying and what could be an estimated budget. Based on this smaller staff. And then financing the joint undertaking, all of it. Would actually show an increase of $300,000. And, at first glance, you say, oh, we're gonna spend more and we're gonna have fewer staff available to us. I don't really want to look at it that way, so I worked out an analysis of past history. Newcastle's contracts have, on average, have gone up 4.16%. So every new, we might have a contract each year that, or a group of years that have a 3% increase year over year, but then there's a big bump after that one. When I average it all out, it comes to 4.16. Historically, municipal budgets are around 3%. So this the blue line shows the municipal debt, or the municipal operating and debt service cost. That shows a big drop down there. That's when the debt would end for the new facility, 10-year debt. And the rate at which it increases is slower. So at first, and I think it's FY32 is sort of when the lines cross and the savings start to happen for the town versus that of a contracted service. It's not perfect, but it's just a visual representation of why I still think, even if there's a cost increase in that first couple of years, that the net savings in the future will be a great benefit to the towns. So additional benefits of summer staff, and I mentioned this before, or accomplished on call. That's a big, I think, a big benefit. Right now, we have some money in our budget to address the one-offs, but it is limited. So I do, when somebody calls and says our road sign is out in May, I basically tell Seth, order it, but we're not going to pay for it till after July. So we can't even go get it till July because I don't want to go over budget. And you've noticed over the last few years, I've had to ask this board to move money out of other accounts to keep our public works in the black. So having staff available to address matters as they come up would be hugely beneficial. Like I said before, assistance with facility needs. I try to take on a lot. I reach out to you guys to help. It works, we get by, but there's still a lot to be done, including it's getting very warm in here. And it's because Thomas and I tried to fix the system in the basement this morning. So anyway, ditching, culvert replacement, tree trimming. Those are some other benefits of having.
They would be doing mowing, wouldn't they not?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, and that's some of the other things we still need to flesh out is what will we continue to contract services for? Obviously, our capital roads will not be something we do. I'm not going to buy equipment to do asphalt. There are plenty of great contractors around here who can continue to do that for us. But I'm thinking more of that's one of those subcontracted contracts now. So even our contractor doesn't even do it. He subs that part out. And unfortunately, his guy is not well. So it might be something we take on, but that's some more equipment we have to purchase. So we still haven't got that deep into the details of the contracts. And what aspects of our budget would have to be that. So
Just another thing about the back to slide 24, the, sort of proposed break even.
this one,
We're also gonna be. Is it fiscal year 30 that we have to renegotiate our plow contract, or is it 28?
we have 2 years remaining on contracts, and then we have the option for an extension of 2 years.
So. There's a chance that there will be even more of a jump in that revenue than what we're seeing.
I did estimate some.
So,
Yep,
Okay.
that currently estimates that 4.16% from starting next fiscal into fiscal year.
but it could be,
Uh-huh.
we have no
No, I got it.
Just keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so then the last kind of element of this was sort of the space needs and assessment. Andy, do you want to talk about what you guys have over in Damascata now?
Sure. Um, we've got a facility that exists on the back end, or I guess depending on what you look at first, the same parcel as the fire department. Off of Heater Road, what the cleared area is there, is about, it's 1.5 acres roughly. That's cleared. We push up against wetlands, and so we have some challenges with growth, but we have a sand shed right in the center of that. That's a dome style structure that was pre-engineered and stamped by the state years ago that we've erected that we know we need to address and replace at some point in the next couple of years. There's a sand structure, a salt storage building next to that that's similar to what you have on your property off of Mills Road. And then we have our recycled 2-bay garage that's had a small addition that's still waiting for a proper bathroom to be installed on it for the first time ever. And so we have 2 people that work for us. It serves our needs, but going beyond, it's not a location that would serve us well other than an auxiliary site for material storage. And that was something we talked about, depending on the location of a future garage, if one were to be constructed, kind of more central for the 2 towns, or it's not, where could an accessory stockpile go? That is permitted for salt and sand storage, so that's a plus in that regard. It's just going to need a new facility, which Damascata has been starting to set money aside for. And so when we look down through some of the other communities that have done these, a lot of what we look at the total amount of space we occupy and need, and look at what Newcastle has off of the Mills Road. It comes to a total area 16,000 square feet. And this is what we're projecting. This is what we're estimating we currently have.
I have other slides to touch on it, but I was just gonna mention, and then down here, this little snapshot of, that's off of Mills Road. That's where our salt and sand pile is, which sit on top of an old landfill. So we can't really do much with that site. I don't think DEP even wants us to continue to use that site if we can help it. So if we can find another location, we probably end our use of that if doable. So
Great use of the water.
yeah,
It's industrial.
a dump site
Yeah.
that's capped and now has a salt shed on it.
Yeah, it's great.
I mean,
What could be
I
better?
don't want your crews to be up there enjoying the nice view of the water. So you found some just general schematics from other communities that have done
Yeah, this was kind of Pownell's gone through one recently. It's not too far away, similar size. There was another community we were leaning on that's done one of these recently, at least needs assessments. And so looking at, what the committee had talked a little bit about was, what do you need in a heated space? How much space do you need for that? Do you need to put all of your equipment into a heated building, for the winter time? Do you want to only have some of it in there and room to work on a few pieces at a time and have the rest of it under just covered storage with power, under a pole barn structure or one of those kind of metal shipping container with the fabric top in between? And I think ultimately what we had kind of leaned in towards a little bit more was having a facility that's heated that could serve as the office space, the gathering space for the staff, bathroom facilities, and then enough bay storage area so you can bring a few trucks in. That there's maybe, unless we're willing to wash those trucks off after every snow event and really clean them, bringing those into a heated space with that salt activating on that metal is not going to bode well for it. And so it's just as well to sit outside in the cooler temperatures. And you need to get into them, you start them up. You can still plug them in if they're diesel engines and let them stay warm. But you'll let them warm up before you take off. But there'd still be room to be able to bring stuff in. The salt stand storage in total is estimated to require about 10,000 square feet. Again, whether that's one building or 2 buildings, best to determine once you identify a site and how close it is to your plow routes and not having too much dead time for some of those, trying to minimize that dead all time. Storage building, again, more something simple, thinking of those shipping containers for the sides, top in between, something that you can park your equipment under. It doesn't need to be inside. Keep the sun off of it or keep it just out of the majority of the elements. So a 2,500 square foot building could do a good dent in that need. Material storage, you don't necessarily think about when you're selecting a site beyond maybe what your salt needs are, but if you're doing ditch maintenance or you're doing anything at all to have a stockpile on hand, so when a storm comes through, you're not hoping that the lumber yard's open or wherever you source your material from is going to be available. You can just go to your stockyard and grab it and go. So when you look at the needs, you know, for those stockpiles, and you don't need mountains of them, but having a few truckloads on hand would be helpful for shoulder washouts or something somewhat minor. But as you're doing your
Having culverts on.
culverts on, place to store culverts, a place to store any catch basins if you needed to store those. Material coming out of your ditches, tree trimming, if you're not chipping it on the side of the road, you gotta haul it somewhere. So either creating and making sure you have enough space on that property to accommodate the immediate need in hopefully a few years out. Or you gotta find another location to haul that to, and sometimes that works. And so, in looking at a site down the road for this effort, you know, looking at about 65,000 square feet available on that property for all of those type of material storage needs. And then being able to account for just, you know, people, staff to park, you know, other contractors that need to come in and do work there. And just accounting for kind of roads and alleyways on the property, you know, it's another about 12,000 square feet. So you can see we landed about just over 2 acres, just under 2.5 acres is a minimum need based on that assessment.
And
So going for
our-
5 acres would give you a little bit of room to breathe in the future and not restrict you so, you know, to a site development. You know, you want to make sure you can put your well in your, if you're not on public water and sewer, make sure you can site those in a way that aren't going to be disadvantageous to movements and such. So 5 acres would give you that space you need to grow, but also accommodate without being totally restrictable.
It's Paul really pushed for that too. He says, don't, because we initially had 3 to 5. He said, no, go with 5 at least.
You want to buffer too.
Right. Yep. So any questions on this? Sort of initial work we've done. I mean, we've gone into the details on budgets and we've gone as the board, as the committee has, and not necessarily wanted to rehash everything with this board tonight, but on that upper level are any questions related to what we shared so far?
Well, the one question I have is, we talked about doing salt shed repair at our site. Don't want to jump ahead, tell me to stop, but is there any assessment on what that cost would be to do it whatever still by existing infrastructure? And you know, because it's not like it's just as extra, I mean, we're either gonna pay to do repairs to what we have now, or we're looking at sort of a different model altogether, but either way, we're gonna be spending money in the future on this.
So the structure we have, the roof just got replaced after the storm of January 24 now. Wow, it's already been almost 2 years. That storm, that roof was taken out. Ours still needs to be reset. It's a temporary structure. It was always built as a temporary structure.
Temporary.
So I ideally, if we were to move forward with a project like this, I would suggest we move off of that site and return that to just a VRAP site instead of a storage site. DP has said we want this as a temporary site, or if you're going to use it, you need to close it off. We still haven't even put a gate up it. So we're behind on some of the things we said we would do there. I think this is that point at which we make a decision. Do we continue to use that site and properly have a salt storage there and get the gate up? Or do we just leave it and move everything elsewhere at some point in the near future? It's a good question, and I didn't really think about. I know that they have to replace theirs.
The dome
The
structure.
dome
yeah, we
structure has to be replaced.
just replaced the Quonset hut, similarly in what you have for your salt building just last year.
And those are basically like giant concrete Lego blocks, staggered, and then aluminum frame over that with the really, 20-year tarp on it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Let's back up 2 years, and we were 2 years ago, and we were considering and talking about what do we have to do to update or rebuild this salt shed. And what we knew was temporary structure, we had to basically invest a lot of money to rebuild something that wasn't temporary and then not disturbing part too, so it's a tricky situation.
Mhm.
But there's gonna be considerable investment in just the salt shed. Eventually.
All right, so where do we want to go? So this is the remaining section of that initial timeline proposed in May. The draft plan August to September, and then a final plan approval in October to December. So I think right now, end of September, here we are, asking for some board, and ultimately we'll ask for some public input too, but we've drafted a budget. We have started putting together a list of policies. We're going to continue to work on some of these other elements of it. So on that end, I think what I want to get into with the board tonight is before we start in any serious hunt for land and developing a site, we want to pause and see if this is the direction the select board still wants to go, continue to explore. I mean, I don't want to continue to be in the working group if there isn't the appetite to do this with the select boards. I know back in May, both select boards said, yes, go forward, bring us something. So here we are. Thoughts? Yes. Keep going.
Looks like ultimately it's a money saver and we have a lot more control over what gets done. So the main thing I think is to into a local that everybody's happy with.
Right.
And that can be tweaked as, can't foresee everything, so it can be tweaked easily enough going forward.
Man, I mean. The map looks compelling, you know, in terms of the forecasting on the budget, so that's good things. I mean, the elephant in the room, I think, is past history of the local agreements with this type of thing, with the two towns. So I don't think we should not. We can't ignore that sort of history. At the same time, I think the conditions were different. Which led to the demise of that situation, let's put it that way. So I think I'm more optimistic these days to the partnership between these two towns. So I'm in favor of pursuing this, my opinion, based on those two factors, you know, but money being a big one, but also let's not forget control and customer service. And that's one thing that we're always faced with in our towns is, you know, customer service and, you know, our residents are customers, we might say, but, you know, the residents service. So this gives a lot more attention and control with the town administration to take care of that aspect as well.
Then you can smell the smoke.
No,
No thoughts.
I mean, I agree with both of you said. I think the time probably is. It's an appropriate time to have this conversation, as we said last time we talked about it in May. Even with the history that you mentioned, I think things are different. You know, I know, and we don't like to say it, but we all kind of know that things like this will need to happen as budgets grow. Whether it be public works, fire and rescue, ambulance services, we're already facing those challenges, so. Cooperation into local agreement, regionalizations. For monetary concerns primarily is gonna be the name of the game. I like the amount of work that's gone into it, honestly. I think, you know, you guys have done a really good job of considering a lot of the angles. Which I think is great. And a vast improvement over the last time we attempted this, which, you know, I think the entire interlocal agreement consisted of about a page and a half. It wasn't fantastic. It was a good idea, but it wasn't not implemented well. So I do appreciate the amount of research and the sort of concern and consideration that we're going into. It sounds like what you've thought about or talked about a lot has been, how would that interlocal be structured so that it was not fair, but equitable?
Yeah, within the working group, there's been a lot of discussion about how to structure this so that for success.
Mhm.
How do we structure it for success? How do we keep it from turning into a debacle?
Yeah.
That's definitely been sort of forefront in our conversations.
I mean, at this point, there's no red flags that I see that would say, okay, let's tap the brakes. I think everything you've gathered points us to going further.
Okay.
And I think continuing to, explore with all the best intentions.
And did you have this conversation with the council board yet?
No, that's in 2 weeks.
2 weeks ago.
We'll go do this dog and pony show over there.
Okay.
Yeah, we had met the Wednesday after the committee meeting. Just didn't have anything to find polish up in 2 days.
And I said I would, and here I am. So. Thomas, do you want to add anything? Cause.
I
No,
mean, the presentation is that covers a lot of what we talked about. One thing with the concern, kind of the concerns of the cost increase at the beginning, it was quoted out there that the way there's other places in your municipal budget where you can move some money to offset that. If it's in those 3-4 years, whatever the share of the increase that Newcastle was on the hook for could be pulled out of a capital roads. Decrease it from where it's at the last few years to offset that, so it's not as much of a burden in those units. And to kind of add on to that, you're going to be with doing vastly more summer maintenance. You are potentially extending the life of some of the roads with needs by getting the culverts, the ditching done, so that you're not as worried about those roads failing in the next 4 or 5 years until you can start building your capital a little bit higher again. And that was just one thought that had been presented out there to
good
us.
one. Thank you, Thomas.
Well, and the benefit of having public works, not just road crew, but public works to change those light bulbs that have needed to be changed for the past 3 years and hasn't happened yet.
You didn't tell me.
You're not the public works department.
Currently, he is.
We take advantage of that where we can, like in the winter, if we aren't pushing snow, our 2-person crew is committed to dealing with most of the sidewalks outside of the downtown proper, from the bridge to the light, more or less. And then taking care of the few minor property footprints we have to take care of. And so during the winter months when it's not snowing a lot or need to be tended to, we had one help paint the east side of the town office when we had one person that year. So I was like, why don't you come inside where it's a little warmer and you can help take care of this off. Well, we were budgeting for professional painting to be done at a fair amount higher per square foot cost than we were able to do in-house. So I think you can find places like that where you either deferred, and I think a lot of it really for both towns is more catching up with the deferred maintenance, whether it's facility needs on a lower scale or the road stuff. And so it doesn't have to always be capital. We don't have to wait for it to completely fail. So I think hopefully some of that increase will be met or seen with improved services, improved quality. I mentioned at the last committee meeting, you point any town, either of the towns, you can probably find hundreds of feet of shoulders that are washed out now that could be dressed up. Whether you're a cyclist or a driver or someone who's walking there for fun, recreation, you see it, it's there. How many times can you not see around that corner because the bushes are grown out? Again, both towns have that. So hopefully those are the kinds of things that aren't falling through the cracks, and folks will see that. And feel better about what we're getting instead of always saying, why isn't it done yet? Why isn't it done yet?
Or you have Asiatic bittersweet growing up the back of your fire station.
Insurance company doesn't like
That needs to be eradicated.
Yeah, so I want to also thank Karen for all of the work she has done to keep the growth of all of the greenery on the back of the building off of it. well as all of the other places you do that
Yeah,
work.
It was up into the gutters and up
Mm.
into the roof and underneath the shingles and yeah, under the siding.
One other thing I just want to say, uh. Paul Brown, yeah, it's been sort of helping us through this. One of his comments is a municipal department can generally see, I think, 40% cost savings over,
So
is it 30% cost savings?
that typically we're doing this all at cost, right? I mean, there's an expense to it, but we're not looking to make a profit on it. So I think the markups, the profit margins that are on the private sector that are contracting with us, taking on all of the risk. I mean, that's one of the things that worries me only about, when we looked at staffing levels, we looked at kind of what service level, we spent a whole meeting, I think, really looking at what service levels do we expect the community to demand or expect of us. If the contracts we have now are considered kind of that premium level service, we look at them in the sense of how they respond, what they're expected to have for backup equipment, crew, and they just have to get it done regardless. They take on, we see that, I think, in the contract price. I haven't had anyone really complain under either contract about the quality of the service, especially downtown.
For snow removal.
Right.
Yeah.
That one in particular, but I mean, they're there. We own the contingencies for when people are sick or can't come in, or there are breakdowns. What we had on an equipment list didn't have any spare vehicles for winter plowing, right? And so the numbers and everything, this is a time where we need folks to kind of pull holes in what we're doing. So we aren't faced with why didn't we think of this? Why didn't we think to have an extra truck on hand? Cost wise, that's going to be a big surprise in year two. Or year one, we haven't had to get it. And so, what is it that the community's expecting for a service level? How do we build that? And then how do we address the contingencies and do it in a way that's economical, so we don't have to have a whole fleet sitting there? Do we contract and have a few folks on hand that have plow trucks that say, hey, if one goes down, we have an MOU with you to be able to come in and plow for us when in need. So that might avoid the need to buy a couple extra trucks and having it, because come summertime, you probably won't need to use them all.
Right.
Not all the time. Some might go for maintenance, they're ready for the winter. We stagger the purchase of them initially, so summer use, summer new, offset that replacement cycle initially, so you're not having to worry about it all once again. So we were kind of down in the weeds and need to come back out and kind of let you guys look at it, both boards look at it, and have the community kind of say, well, what about this? Have you thought about that? And geez, no, we haven't thought at all.
Did your calculations include insurance?
Looking
Yes.
at a general sense, yeah.
Payroll,
And how did you,
Like general insurance or?
For the equipment and all that.
in, for your cost projections? What kind of breakout did you use? Because the equipment's gonna be, two towns are gonna be using it, so did you just kind of take a percentage of the total
It
for
is
your cost projections?
a percentage of the total
Like the total costs,
of the vehicles. I didn't.
and just what this whole thing would cost when you did your graph?
So we didn't,
Yeah, that's a total, that doesn't break it by town. Who's
No.
paying? Oh, okay.
Oh, that's the total.
Total.
Okay,
That's
good. That's
total
better.
contracted prices
Okay.
versus the cost of this
Yep.
program for the two towns.
yeah, we haven't actually figured out the breakdown of how much percentage wise each town is. Like that's
That's part of that
Part of-
interlocal agreement.
part of the interlocal agreement, the next.
could have done 10 charts if we wanted to, but I figured, it's here.
Start small.
Looking at this, like, is this on the right track? Are you okay with us continuing to pursue this? And then having those earnest conversations when we're ready for like, what would that look like? And it's just a simple spreadsheet at that point, to plug in a couple different funding scenarios. For each community's impact.
Well, and we, figuring out what the facilities actually are, what the costs actually are, there's a whole list of detail that we need to flush out. This is we're gonna say, $2 to $3 million in building costs, right? So to try and cover, square footage at so much per square foot. So there's still a lot of details that need to get flushed out. How many trucks? What's up,
Mhm.
this is a,
That was what I was supposed to
Yeah.
share with these two last week, was that spreadsheet that we started and created. I still haven't shared with them. So that's where we are with them poking hole in our numbers, but
Looking at the debt service too, like, I mean,
Right.
you were projecting maybe a 10-year payoff. I think I was looking more at maybe it should be 15 or 20. And I think having the opportunity to kind of see all those things in flux and have a chance to, figure out which one's best on that regard. Having those intersecting graphs with lots of, big asterisks. We don't know what contract prices will do 10 years from now. We don't know what in-house department costs will be doing. And what we went through in the last 5 is hopefully not gonna be the norm over a 5-year period going forward, but. What we do know is that you'd be able to do at that cost, to taxpayers, and then. Hopefully there's some sense of control, maybe at least you're conscious and scaling back, you still have staff, right? And that's the key, is throughout the whole year, you'll have staff being able to keep working. For at or about the same price. With hopefully a better response and feedback from the community.
I think, at this point, the high level presentation that we've got here is great. My interest is now like, I want to see those weeds.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
You're right. I don't know that I really have a whole lot more to input or poke holes in, as you say, until I start seeing some of that
Yeah.
thinking behind the numbers, And at the moment, I'll just take it at face value that you think 7.5 employees is gonna be enough. At some point, I want to see how that was arrived at and what would 8, 9 employees look like? What would 6 employees look like? I wanna play with it.
Okay.
So I'm excited by the idea of a spreadsheet. You make fabulous spreadsheets. To be able to really sort of dive in more to the data. And
Okay.
but from a high level, I think this is fantastic.
Maybe, and that's a great segue into sort of like that last question I want to ask tonight. So, we want to move forward. What should our outreach effort be? How much involvement do all 5 of you want in terms of delving into the numbers and coming up with a solution, or how much do you want the public to be involved in that process? Because the fun thing about these spreadsheets, the Google Sheets today is you can let anybody into them and give permissions up to a certain level. Comments, editing, just viewing, which is a lot of the time what we do. So, I would be curious to get some perspective from some of the members of our own community who have experience in public works. I'm just trying to figure out the format and the forum to do that.
So is it the same committee kind of moving forward to the next step?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to continue to work with the working group.
we're all up to speed, kind of makes sense.
Right, and just have essentially invite the rest of the boards to attend some of the community things, but we would do some time in the spreadsheets after their meeting to get their feedback. Both boards are still on board, and we do some public outreach and make this information as deep as they want to go available.
What do you think that timeline's like?
Into November, unfortunately.
This fall.
Yeah,
So
November.
sometime this year. we gotta-
Yeah, well, so, and here's the, I think let's hit the end of the wall here. Really, what we need to know is, are the communities on board with borrowing money to pay for, acquire land and pay for a building? Or buildings or structures?
Three structures.
Yeah, multiple structures, land acquisition, those things, I need to know as the community, we need that vote. And that vote then comes with the actual site plan, engineering, whatever it takes. And then building. And that's what, you need 2 years to do that, you're likely talking about maybe June. Secret ballot election,
28th.
well, June 26th, we'd have the vote.
Oh, okay.
And then you'd hopefully be ready to go for 27, 28. You hopefully have shovels done being in the ground, building built, staff ready to go. Staff ready to go for the fiscal year 29, which the end of it would be the June 30, 2028 would be the last day, and then hopefully ready to go, turn the key on.
So,
That's one option. You
Yeah.
can kick it 2 more years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I got a couple of points, I think, So on the sort of, I mean, this is conceptual and this is very abstract right now, because we're just kind of. Creating this sort of model, this framework of this scenario, and it's just, it was a 24-slide presentation. At some point, we're gonna have to talk about land. We're gonna have to, when the rubber hits the road, we're gonna talk about where does this thing live? You know, where is it? What does it look like? And you know, and then start to talk about engineering. That's when I think people are really gonna be sort of interested to know, you know, what's involved with assets, you know, who owns the asset, because it's gonna be in one town or the other. We can't just put it in the river. So,
You could, you wouldn't. work
yeah, I
out so
don't
well.
think a DEP would like that.
No.
Fill in a big.
So, you know, those are the weeds, you know, that we'll get into. I'll just give you one sort of engineer's perspective to keep in mind. If you're gonna look at sort of site development at 2.29 acres. Go to over 3, because that's a threshold for state site law. Development standards. You're gonna get there anyway if you're talking about expansion and other half acres. So,
I think 5 was sort of our minimum.
Yeah.
yeah, so just to keep in mind, if you're gonna do engineering, you might as well do it now, so you're not being it into a corner later on with, oh no, we didn't figure that.
Burner
Site law.
pools and
Yeah,
all those
so
things, yeah.
stormwater management, all that other stuff and those all that, so. And I gotta mention this, you know, waste disposal. I mean, I think we really should talk about this at this point in time, not tonight, I'm just saying. As you go through this process, for enough land, if you're gonna do something like that in the future. And I think we should consider.
But not the dump, but the transfer station.
Transfer facility.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think another aspect that I know I would be interested in, but would certainly be interest to both towns. And it would maybe help with the comfort level to get the vote you're asking for, would be equitable disposal of assets in the termination of the agreement, should that be triggered.
It'll never happen.
Well, I mean, it'd be great to just know that there is a plan in place.
Yes.
Not just to fund it, build it, to run it, but to shut it down.
As part of the interlocal agreement, have a dispersal clause or. however
Like,
it's structured.
we don't have to argue about it when a time happens, it's already written into the agreement. We already know how it's gonna happen, and we're bound to follow it.
Strong, and that was one of our recommendations, a strong penalty for that process. In order to try to keep it alive. Yeah, it was too easy to undo the previous agreement, and that was one of the strong. Elements of this discussion was, how do we make sure that that doesn't happen again, and what you're talking about. Would definitely be a part of that interlocal agreement.
Right.
Thank you for calling that.
No. I mean, if I'm voting on it, I'd like to know.
Yeah. Oh, you'll have plenty of time to read it.
Right.
It won't be 2 pages, it'll be longer.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, every contract needs a termination clause.
So back to your point where you're saying like beyond the 5 acres for. The public works that we've identified, if we're looking at parcels, if we found something. With more space. Potentially,
Yeah,
could be advantageous.
I'm just saying, so yeah, when you're looking at site plan development. Because at some point you're gonna start to hire somebody to do sketching. Then figure this stuff out. Block out some of these other components that may be included in the future.
In the future, yeah.
And I would recommend that you at least go through the permitted, you know, maybe not a transfer facility, but you know, at least the area that's paved, and that way you're sort of permitted to cover that amount of area instead of having to go back. Every time you add another
Right,
5,000 square feet of pavement to your public works department, and then you trigger another 6-month review at the DEP. So, you know, I think just do it all now. Let's go through that thing now. Easier to keep it.
And I just want to back up, like, you and I briefly talked about this, the transfer station concerns today are about the equitable situation we have currently with Noblesboro and Jefferson.
I don't think that's, I mean, we've talked about this in other meetings.
Right.
So that's not, it's not news.
But there's a lot of other members of the public here.
There's new members to the public that haven't shown up at other meetings, of course. So, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm saying also, if we're gonna look at this, let's extract the most value out of what we're doing. So that we're not missing something that can be included that has a better payoff in the future, not just, yeah, we're looking at 10 years out and we've got to bond something. What does that bond look like to debt service? And then how can we leverage that with the best of our ability so that we're in a better future, both towns in 10 years? What does that look like? And I think the transfer facility is part of that.
So, if the thought is to bring it to a vote for both towns, if you said one of the possibilities is to bring it at the next annual town meeting next June.
Correct.
So in order to just backing up, it hit that. Just, we need to do a lot of work.
Yeah, I know.
So I guess what I'm saying is like, I mean, this is fantastic, but partially baked.
Yeah.
Yep. And so how much longer does the working group need to get it to a point where they would consider it fully baked in order to do like intense public hearings with the public? In looking at that timeline, because in reality, it's not just June, right? You gotta back it up. It's probably,
Well, in order to get on the ballot,
it's gotta be done by April, mid-April.
that's right.
Right? To get on the
Ballots have
ballot.
to be printed. Ballots have to be printed at least a month before the election because you have early voting.
Right, and this is one of those things.
45 days? Sorry.
Well, it's 30 days to be available to vote absentee, but you're 45 days ahead of that date.
Right,
For the print, you guys have machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're 45 days minimum
yes,
for them to turn that around.
Right.
And so you're 75 days.
75.
after.
so yeah, I'm just, yeah, it's like, end
March.
of March, right? So I'm thinking like, in order to have realistic public hearings where input could be received and plans could be changed before it met that deadline, we have to have public hearings in,
Starting next week.
next week. No, but I mean like
November.
I guess at the latest is when we have to start. Right? Because
Yeah.
then like November, December, and then maybe we're making final changes January, February.
Well, wouldn't the ideal scenario be that we have this sort of worked out before budget season starts? So that we're not trying to do both at the same time.
Funny you mention that, because if we're gonna do secret ballot elections, we need to start the budget process in December.
Yeah.
So, well, the board needs to start meeting, the public presentation would happen early January. And the budget process will start in early January.
But that hasn't been decided yet.
That's later.
No,
Right.
the decision on whether and how we're gonna hold town meeting has not been made.
No, it hasn't.
Okay, let's just make that clear. So I guess what I'm just asking, understanding that sort of very rough timeline. Does the working group and the town managers feel like we can bake that idea? No, you're shaking your head, and no, that's not enough time.
No, I mean, I think that's a high, I mean, not saying it can't be done, but I mean, you're putting a lot of other things aside to get that done.
Okay,
Really, I put out there, I wonder if what is needed, what would be comfortable for the boards, the towns, to be able to give a green light. I mean, I do think what we've done is the high level, we're not engineers, we're not truthing really today's cost of what we think it would take. I mean, we are using what other towns have kind of done, I think for the heated space, I'm thinking like it was $5 or $5.50 a square foot. I don't know if that's what we're really at. I mean, for the unheated space, we're I think $2.50 a square foot. So it's like we've put some ballpark figures in there. I don't know. I mean, would at least this board, would you be in for the communities? Do you think that they'd want to have maybe for this first year the outlay to do the engineering report, identify the parcel, spec it out, do all that groundwork to understand a better sense of, and then the budget numbers that we've created at a higher level get retweaked, and then go for a town meeting with that level of detail? Or are you thinking that you'd want to kind of start with green light, yes or no, then we'll deal with doing the step.
I personally, I think you need to know where this place lives and what infrastructure you're building. And you need at least an engineer's conceptual budget on those components.
You know,
Yeah, right, because
Similar.
the cost to develop the property
We don't know
could
that.
be depending on what
There's
property.
so many variables,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
you know, and you can't just, I don't feel comfortable going to the town and saying. Looks good, and these graphs, these are hypothetical, should we go forward? I mean, if it looks good, it looks good, I mean, I think, you know, if the money's in our favor or in the town's favor, then. I mean, you know, I guess why not, you know, I think, you know, all things considered, but I think we really need to take the time to. Figure out, you know, some of these details.
Real costs.
Yeah.
But that sounds like we're going to the voters for at least 2 approvals.
Well, kind of, I'm just thinking, what if, I mean, we can still do a special meeting.
No, that's fine. I'm just saying, like,
It doesn't have to be.
if the next actual step is that the towns need to jointly spend money on. No, I hate to use the word real, because the work you guys have been doing is real,
Yeah,
No, but
but professional,
we've been doing conceptual work. That's like,
thank you, conceptual versus professional, so.
Yep.
If we need to pay for professional services to do more analysis. On feasibility, site identification, site development, then that's an ask. That's a monetary ask, before the big ask of here now. Now that we've done all that and here's all that information, if they approve that work. Then it's the big ask of now, do we fund it, right? So sounds like it's 2 votes to me, minimum. For the public. You guys disagree?
That's one option,
That is an option,
right?
Yeah.
What's the option you prefer?
more time, but.
well, I mean, that is, you know,
It's just competing priorities.
we don't. We've got. 2 years left on a 3-year contract and a 2-year extension possibility. We don't have to have this ready.
No,
You know, and if pumping the brakes and getting real costs associated with it makes more sense, then it makes more sense.
I think from a budgeting standpoint, it's gonna be harder to find some other professional besides the ones that we have access to now. To help us design a public works department. Andy's done a lot of the work up front. But getting others to step in and tell us exactly if it's gonna be 8 or 9 or 10 is really hard to get someone's perspective. Paul's been saying we can do it at 8. People.
Oh,
But it's bare bones. And we looked at a premium, which is what, 12?
something like that. It kind of created a downtown crew for both communities and so one of the places where it kind of. Steps back is, you know, with the. Staffing levels that were shared in this presentation is, you're basically treating your main street and your sidewalks at the same. Level, if not slightly less than the roads, right? So you'll get to them when you get to them, like that shorter turnaround route. As they get done with that, depending on the storm type that you have, they'll have time essentially before it accumulates enough. To have to go plow that again, that they could do some of the sidewalks, they could clear, if you still have another contractor taking care of Main Street for both communities. And so you're gonna have to try and keep up with what comes off of that snow blade. Onto the sidewalks in both communities, into the side streets in both communities, so. You know, the idea of having that premium level of service built out on our model added, I think. 4 or 5 full-time equivalents.
I think it was 4, 4.5 full time.
Yeah.
So we went from 7.5 up to 12. So I think from the budgeting for a department, that can be handled either within our network of contacts. And so on and so forth. It's really about, you know, how much do you go before it becomes too expensive for the community to say we want to buy into this? You know, what level of service? And that's really where the working group said, we're not ready for that premium level. Let's start here and work our way up. That aside, I think the engineering benefit would be the either the pre-engineering of what a site might look like, helping us identify sites. What it might cost to acquire them, and what the layout might look like. That's an area where, you know, we're spitballing it. And that would be beneficial if we were to ask for the funding to do that level of professional service or work with a firm to do that.
Well, we've got an example we're doing right now, downtown. On Mills Road, I mean, we're kind of doing a similar assessment right now of a lot,
Right.
that we've hired engineers to. That number was like $20,000 or less.
Yeah.
So I think it's money well spent. I'm not saying pump the brakes. What I'm saying is, I think time to reveal more detail is better than doing something
Rushing.
rushing, or just not even rushing, but doing something to the point where you're just trying to get some approval with information that's not complete. So I think what is a timeline? If you have a little more time to get more detail, what does that detail reveal? And is it better to wait a little extra? Maybe do one vote.
One vote.
Yeah.
I mean, one vote's easier in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I guess just maybe what I'm kind of outlining in my head is that the information that I've seen so far can be put into several general buckets, right? And there are some big questions about some of the buckets like site development that we don't know yet. And that are just, you know, probably need a lot more fleshing out.
Startup costs, operational costs.
Well, there's more than that because, you know, there's an employee bucket.
Well, that's what I mean, like operational costs are the annual costs for
Yes.
8 employees
Yeah.
and for debt service and for fuel, consumables, all of that. And then, but there's the startup costs of the site development, building buildings, buying or leasing equipment, you know, like those initial costs that I feel like as a working group, we could get tighter on the startup costs than we are now, certainly. The operational costs, I think, for not actually knowing how many people we need, we've got a pretty good grasp on that. I don't know how much tighter we can get on that without knowing, do we need 7 people or do we need 10 people? But certainly the startup costs are really lacking. And that probably requires,
This
That-
pre-engineering work.
well,
Not
you know,
just-
actually coming up with, okay, some site selection, some pre-engineering, some actual like building costs on certain types of buildings.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, in our analysis, I think we estimated $3.1 million for facility and site acquisition and some facilities. So is that a close enough number? I don't know. Can we do things inexpensively, especially if we do pole barn where a bunch of the equipment lives under instead of in a garage? You know, we're gonna need a wash bay. You know, these are the things that I just don't know what's gonna be required, what permitting is gonna be required for that.
One of the other assumptions we made that you'd be financing most of the equipment over like a 5-year period with hopefully 0% interest on some of it. And so. And that was an asterisk report, but kind of built that into the operating payoff rather than a debt service. You can just take it as like a lease to own kind of deal. And so that might change slightly what you're bonding, potentially if that option is not available. So I mean, there's definitely, but that's stuff that we can work and just need to figure out what the community feels is best. Have to take. I mean, do you lease them? Do you own them? Some of the equipment you might look at a lease option instead of ownership, some of the specialized equipment.
Yeah.
Whereas every few years you're gonna recycle it out for the newest version of it.
Yeah.
You'll look at hours that you expect to use it for instead of pushing it. How
Mhm.
many miles can you put on it before it starts to ding you?
Yeah.
You're still gonna own some of the maintenance on it. So you have to you can run those things, but that's relatively. For the committee and us, pretty straightforward, look at other models, but And I think I'm kind of wondering, like, with kind of the next stage, a better polished version of this report. For the community to feel good about saying, okay, we authorize, each community to leverage 50 grand or whatever it's going to need to be each to put towards that pre-engineering kind of level of study that shows like, here's exactly what it would look like on this site that you're identifying that could be the home for this. And then would the community feel better about having that concept, that re-engineered, something that basically at the point where it's could be permitted or has been maybe. Or do you kind of see it more as like, here's a concept, this is a big study, you fleshed it all out, here are the next steps. Seek approval for the engineering, after the engineering, we will go forward with bonding and construction. Or do you want it to be that checkpoint of like, this is what we thought, that we feel good about this number, we can update what we've worked on.
Yeah, what we did in our last town meeting is we did itemize, engineering. We typically do that. If we have a planned project, set aside money for, planning and engineering. But, yeah, I think that's what we're talking about is, and I think, there may be a number, $50,000 or something like that to do, engineering, something like this. That's what we're talking about.
You got one site in mind, it helps if you're gonna flush that out for 2 or 3 sites.
Absolutely.
Go up a little bit, but
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the buildings might be the same, you're just putting them in different places for that.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so that's,
Identify what we need for buildings. We
Yeah.
know what those costs are likely to be, and then it's more, what's the site development cost for this site versus that site, and pros and cons of the sites.
So, personal preference, this is totally my personal preference. Would be to have that sort of master plan in a detailed way. So asking the towns to authorize the pre-engineering work and get it as close to like what it would actually look like. You know what I mean? And then the conversations about levels of service, number of employees, equipment, annual operating costs, like all of that can be happening on an independent track, I guess is what I'm thinking. But I feel less inclined to ask the voters to vote for something that is a very big number without something specific in hand.
Sure.
Yep.
That a map we can point to, and this is what it would look like. And yes, we've asked, and gotten the approval for that. And if ultimately the voters say no, they don't want to do it, we're out the engineering costs. But at this point, from where we currently sit, the view looks like that would be worth getting.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
so,
So I think I would probably endorse a path where that would be the route. And if that means that ultimate approval of the department comes at second vote as a joint special town meeting of both towns, sometime after June of 2026, fine. Like I'm not fussed about the timeline, and I don't feel any great urgency to be like, yeah, let's.
So I think there's 2 things that can happen between now and said June, said future decision from the community about what this looks like. So seeing if the other select board is open to putting some money in a pot to hire an engineer to help us with site concept design and layout. Obviously, vernal pools will play into this and the DEP requirements to get things approved. So identifying a site or sites, the site plan layout, which could be on those sites. Is that enough to then say, what do you think, community? And of course, it comes with some estimates about cost. So we know that it's a $2.5 million or $3 million venture to go this route.
We need a drawing of a building.
Yes, the concept design, site
Yeah.
design would have that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying 90% design at that point, but
No, but we need
Visually,
a pretty accurate depiction of what we're looking at, what the site will look like.
okay. So that is element one of this too is refined budget numbers for people to look at and get their heads around.
Hmm.
In terms of staffing, I put in some wiggle room to show, if you add another couple of staff. In order to accommodate a letter higher level of service.
I don't know that, I mean, personally, it's something like this, I don't know that you would need to craft one of your spreadsheets where, you know, you open it up and people can just pick and play with you don't know. I think if we presented, you know, 2, 3 at the most, options for level of service, then we can have a series of public hearings around those concepts and really get community input on where that lies relative to, you know, where the town's thinking is, and not just rely on the 10 of us to make that decision in you know, in one recommendation. I think I know that's a little bit more work, but it's really just saying, well, if we went for, you know, the gold star, here's kind of what we're looking at, you know, 15 employees with blah, 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 you know what I mean? And here's sort of the middle of the road option, and here's sort of the economy version. That continuum, I think, would help folks understand a little bit better what we're trying to achieve relative to what we have, and compare the cost, because that's really, at the end of the day, we're approving a number, a big number, and that has to be justified, obviously. But in order to do that, folks really need to be able to weigh in their own mind the quality of service that we've got versus what we're going to be proposing, and is it going to be worth whatever those dollar amounts? And that's the equation, that's the balancing.
Okay.
And so I don't want to create a whole lot more work for y'all, but I kind of do, because it's a big project, and it'd be the biggest joint undertaking that my town's to propose. And it would be,
Big.
It's kind of.
it would be permanent as a permanent thing, you know, as it could be, right? I mean, that's once you build the building and you own it, like you're in it. You can't just then knock it down and get your money back, like. So.
I know you'd have this on your radar anyway, but just want to mention. Capital depreciation, buildings. Payment, all that stuff. I personally would like to see what that looks like in the 10, 20 years for depreciation. I think we need to consider that as well.
You know, like, I like your idea, Andy, of having, you know, different options for timeframes for, you know, bonding. Again, just once you've got the buckets all put together with big numbers, you can say, well, this is what it would look like in 10 years. This will be like if we finance it for 15.
Yeah, I mean, there's the initial, whatever the principal cost is, and then sometimes we kind of forget about that interest cost.
Yeah.
So obviously the lesser of time, the better.
Yeah.
Maybe Municipal Bond Bank has a great spreadsheet, and so you can see the difference between level payments and.
Yep.
Or well debt.
Yep.
And that sometimes with the numbers we're looking at is the difference of another. $400,000.
Yeah.
And so it's not insignificant. It's all about balancing that annual, what the towns want to pay.
The only other thing, and I'll shut up after this, because it's already late, but most commonly what happens, whether it's a town or another institution that considers some sort of master plan and wants to build a building or do a big project like that. The thing that gets talked about or not considered at all, we'll talk about the least not considered, is continued maintenance. So building the thing is one thing. Keeping it running, not just annual operating costs, but maintenance costs have to be factored in from the beginning, because we just don't want to be, you know, sideswiped 10 years after we started. Oh, well, the whole back half of the building is rotted out because we never budgeted any money for maintenance, and now we have to rebuild the back. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that. Like, and I know it's really hard to throw a number at that, but you pick a number and you say, well, here's the number. 30% of that goes straight into maintenance in the future, like, and you just add that right at the beginning so that you know what you've got some cushion built in for maintenance. It's a really sad story that I can point to so many, even in these two towns where it's happened and something gets built and no maintenance is ever done to it because it's never considered.
I just want to see if there's anybody in our audience back here. Anybody have a comment or a question at this point?
Do you have sites in mind?
So, I think at this point, it's not, how do you answer this, Kevin? I mean, I don't know if we've talked about possible places in town. And it's gone all over the board. I mean, we've talked about, how does this look up in, North Newcastle, places around here. I mean, so. Yeah, we've had sites in mind, I think, and so that's the answer. I mean, yeah, we do have sites in. We go through the list. I think it'd be best to have a map. But I don't think we're at that point.
I mean, we're gonna have to get to that point.
Well, we've talked briefly
Yeah.
about what's available in both towns, which are the tax book parcels. What's for sale, but, and we even walked some sites, but, we haven't settled on anything at this stage.
Do you have any in mind?
Yeah, do you have anything?
We're open to suggestion. I mean, the more central, the better is sort of what we've landed on. And it's, it's hard to find just the right piece and there's, piece on Old County Road, but Old County Road's not great for getting trucks in and out. Yeah, there's a piece up in North Newcastle, but that's all the way in North Newcastle, so it doesn't make a lot of sense for town. So
Right north of Sherman Marsh Bridge is a 50-acre lot for sale that you could give you out.
Oh. Yep. Just across from the distillery
Mhm.
On that hill?
on that hill, that piece is on the market. But again, that's all the way out. That's in, about as far west as it would be, yeah. Yep.
As long as they're not building the round
We'll be done with it.
they still.
And I think depending on, thinking of that as like wherever that location is for the primary facility, having the option for, here or potentially being an auxiliary site.
Right, that's another thing
Maybe
we've
it's
talked
not
about is
just-
satellite.
Maybe it's got the
Yeah.
garage there that can put a have a crew in there to fix a small piece of equipment or have stuff to get downtown to work on. And so you could look at, pieces we do own that could work to your advantage that would be.
Well, or just to have a sand pile that's on the far, sort of splits the difference between the farthest place we have to go and the main shed could make some of those routes make a lot more sense. I mean, there's a lot of angles to consider. But then, of course, that's more facility to maintain, more equipment to have on hand.
I see that as part of task groups.
Sure.
process,
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, like I say, we're gonna need to identify sites and sort of narrow that down if we want to get engineering done on any of them. So,
Because if you do, there's land that the town might have now, there's land that would have to be acquired.
right, right.
So, that goes into the ROI equation, which is.
Yep.
If we buy that, it's a great site, there's this benefit because it's closer to the town's service areas.
Right.
But, it's gonna cost us much money. That's just.
Yeah.
That's. I'm sorry. Hi.
Seems like a small number of employees we're talking about for plowing and ditching and so on. My question is, have we compared what our current contractors that we use, the different ones there and stuff? Have we actually asked them how many staffing hours they use for plowing generally? And are we sure that people that can plow can also do ditches and drainage when everybody's having trouble finding employees? We're now gonna look for people who are multi-talented to do, plowing in the winter and ditching and drainage in the summer. Are we sure that 7, 9 people, I remember, are sufficient to do all that? My road gets doing really well right now. I'm quite happy with this. So, are we sure we're gonna have the same quality of service? Off the big something for a lot of the agent plowing now. But I think we have to be smaller, down where, is that right?
Yeah.
A smaller vehicle.
I think the current contractor doesn't have the same fleet as the previous one, so I think our community did notice that there were some smaller vehicles serving our community last year than we had in the past. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I think like the committee had looked into, what size vehicle is needed. I mean, some of it's about carrying capacity of salt, sand salt load. And so if you got a longer route, you're gonna want to have a bigger capacity, so you don't have to go back as often. And that'll drive that. Again, some of that will depend on where the location of the storage. Kind of central for their loop, they went through a lot of back. So I think some of that have to come into focus still on the location and minimize that day.
These staffing numbers are based on information that we got from our consultant. How many road miles can you expect to get out of a truck with a road? So that's, we are working from sort of established staffing guidelines for snow removal. For that.
And for us, kind of a standard level of service as we were looking at it, we did look at a service level that had X number of employees that would have the attention that we see now, roughly. And then another level, which is what we see here, which, the consultant, we kind of called like a lean and efficient crew level. But we'd have to have some contingencies in place for, when there are 2 people out. The idea would be that your foreman's out there, I'll plow route, and potentially your road commissioners available to sub in as needed, or can help with the downtown with that other half equipment. So we can imagine. And so, I think when it comes to experience in filling a crew out, I mean, every business has think of that, but I mean, don't stop you from operating and going forward if there's a reason to don't consider it. So you end up maybe competing with, and how do you make sure it's an attractive job offer, and looking at year-round work with generally good benefits. And to go through that, I think it's something good, and you can always train, hire the right people to train to do a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, he works for Maine Local Roads as a day job, and it's a resource to the whole state. Yeah.
He works for Maine DOT. Reviews every town.
Yes, Roger.
To me, this is kind of like. It's important. It's kind of like starting a fire department, you gotta have a pump, and you gotta have a tanker truck, and you gotta have a rescue truck, and you gotta build a building, but it works, and it's necessary, and I think, this level of service, we'll have much better year-round level of service than we have currently, because the contractor that we use, he's got his work plan for his contracting work, and so he kind of has to fit us in when he gets time. And so it's kind of like with our own people, we could have a level of service that the residents want, we can tailor what we do based on what the residents, want for service. And we can increase that or decrease it, or, so, I mean, it's, I think it's a necessary thing in the future.
Anybody else?
Now, the building that you choose a location, I would presume you have to meet Newcastle's, say it's in Newcastle, their core zoning, you can't. jump outside of that, so that's gonna limit your. Your potential outlook of where you can actually put a building of this magnitude.
Yeah, zoning will have. to take
Yeah,
that into consideration.
That's gotta go through.
It's over 10,000 square feet.
Yeah. A large scale project. The only thing I would think is we do have Blu-ray civil. We still have some.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not, you can't tell the Newcastle residents that they can't do something on a facility and then as a town step in and build a. For all intents and purposes, the same facility. I mean, to me, that doesn't look good with them.
Yeah.
Oh, the drawing of one, I think we estimated 10,000.
For the
But that was,
principal structure, yeah.
that is the. But if the engineer comes back and says, well, with a crew of 8, someday you grow to 12. And you do it still, when you do it with less, I have no idea, but there was just another town in Maine recently just built that.
It's different by district,
Yeah.
so, the building that size is not gonna be a problem in the roads. More,
Yeah, what's the site? What's the development? What's the mesh of the building?
So just listening to everybody, it seems to me that the proposal sounds great, but site selection and proposal and getting that ahead of it is gonna be very important. Because if you had, this is a great plan, but if you say, hey, we're gonna put this facility here. And it's in the proximity to a residential neighborhood, I've been around equipment my whole life. So I'm like, oh, a PW laydown yard, we got fuels, we got. Petroleum oil and lubricants, and then we're gonna pile 3,000 tons of salt. But there's a salt marsh right there, and there's a residential neighborhood right there. People don't want 10-wheelers driving out 2 driveways down from where they live usually. You know, so that's probably, in my opinion, that's gonna have to come out early. And talk to the voters about, hey, we're thinking about putting this here. What do you guys think? And then obviously plan for an alternative site.
Yeah, I think that's been the discussion, which is to. Have the details, like you're asking about,
Right.
and then. See where it goes.
Because just for example, I live over on the Lynch Road. And there's all kinds of big, huge fields over there. But to have a facility like that on one of those fields. On the Lynch Road, it would be like, what? You know, everything drains into the marsh over there. You have a ton of residential wells all around it. So, you know, all the residents over there would be like. No, that doesn't sound like a great idea, but another location, like looking on the map, some of the current locations, they're a little off from that. And there's not, you know, they're not, well, the one facility is right up against the Great Salt Bay. Which sucks. We need to find a better,
Not
we
ideal.
definitely need to find a better situation for that.
Yes,
And
sir.
I totally agree with that. But yeah, just listening to everybody, I think the proposal is a great idea. You know, of the combined public works. But I think we need to get out in front of where. A facility like this is gonna be. And I don't know right now, I don't have any ideas where that might be.
Would be the biggest hurdle is finding a facility that
Right, and then getting the butters to say, yeah, that would benefit people.
You might consider an ask for the community if you're doing that route is. The funds to do the professional engineering. Site development type work, but also maybe a purchase option, so you have. period of time, you know, you have the ability to either act at the end of 2 years on that parcel or just step back and not have it versus, I mean, how do you go down the route of doing the full assessment if you don't have ownership of it already or the purchase ability? So you might want to have the ability to enter into a contract for purchasing that allows time to do this kind of work. If there are going to be more than one site, so that could be.
Yeah, this is all, it's all abstract until. Really, there's not some press already. We'll get there. But I'll get to move along. Is there anybody else with a comment?
Hey, Kevin, have you got a site in mind?
We've looked at 3 sites in Newcastle.
Whereabouts are they?
One on Lynch Road.
What's on Lynch Road?
Town acquired a parcel in tax foreclosure.
Town's got a piece of land on the Lynch Road.
Does,
How many acres?
it's 25 acres.
How much road frontage?
I don't recall.
It's skinny. I know the piece.
Yeah, it's
It's a
narrow.
narrow entrance and there's that's drainage to the marsh behind it.
Yeah.
And straight across from their driveway is a culvert that drains right into my property. 50 feet from my well and my garden. So I'd be strongly opposed to that site. I'll tell you that right away.
What's the second one?
I looked at the East Oak County Road, but getting over Academy Hill and down that hill and back up is next to impossible. So it wouldn't be a good site. And then there are some pieces along Joneswood Road that we'd have to acquire.
Well, that was, yeah, what about the new old down? Isn't there something like 80 acres there or something?
It's a VRAP. I can't get into the ground on there, so I can't do much with that site.
Why is
It's
it?
all dump.
Yeah, I know, but the dump is way off, you go to the left. And there's all kinds of one there.
With a proper easement from CNP. On the lines.
You go over the knoll, then you go to the left, and that's where the.
So Kevin, why don't you take me out and show me these sites? Because I gotta find something at some point. Would you mind doing that?
That would work.
Take me out, show me.
I think there's an eagle's nest on the link road, you know, if you have to take that out.
I mean, let's not forget the.
Two little babies that smoked this spring, you know. 4 or 5 of them, nice.
It also has to work for Dennis Scott too, so further west we
The little old dump is where it's gotta go.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna move the agenda. Make sure I'm not cutting everybody off. Been some comments. We good? Okay. Andy and Kevin, you guys good? Okay. Good,
Thank you.
excellent. Thanks, Andy.
You guys for all your work.
Okay, next agenda item is item 6A, so unfinished business. General assistance. So. Public hearing. It's for approving dependencies A through H.
Can I move to approve the general assistance funds to H?
Move this. Second. Yep. Okay, all those in favor? Great, 5 in favor. Number 6B, special town meeting. So this meeting is on October 14th. And, that on this. Closed language for the question one. So there's a requested motion here.
I'll second the.
Yeah, done. Seconds and discussion.
I just want to read Article 2, which currently says, this is what we'd be voting in if they're elected moderator. Shall the town authorize a transfer of $1,100,000 from its undesignated fund balance to the severe storm reserve account to pay for the replacement of Mills Bridge on Lynch Road? So, needs to actually say severe storm reserve. All it says is severe storm.
Amended. Friendly amendment.
Yes, friendly.
So just one word included. Anything else?
It's some people here who have not been before when we're discussing this, it's not like a lot of money. I want to explain what it's for.
It is. Sure, this is to basically bridge the bridge. It's a bridge loan to ourselves to pay for the bridge replacement of the culvert that was washed out in May of 2023. Can't believe it's how long it's been. We are aware of at least $1 million from the federal government to help offset this cost. We are working to get additional funding from mitigation. I don't know if that's going to be 300,000 or 600,000, but I know that we have $1 million that will come to us to help offset this. This is the amount between this and some money we still have in the severe storm account. We can cover the rest of our expenses related to this.
But like everything else, we have to actually pay for it before we get reimbursed
Correct.
from
Correct.
state.
Yes.
So this allows us to pay for it, and then the reimbursement goes back where this was sitting
It
before.
was sitting back into our undesignated fund balance. So we are dipping slightly below our policy, which says you should have 3 months on reserve. We're dipping below that a bit while we wait for the reimbursements. That's the request to the town.
And since we have folks here who live on Lynch Road,
Yeah.
we just need to make sure y'all understand the impact this project will have on your lives. Which,
Okay, comment? 100% for getting that bridge fixed. Thank you very much.
well, it'd be nice to have it fixed.
Is that did wash out badly? They did a good job.
But it's washed out repeatedly with the
Yeah.
box culverts. We want a bridge.
That's quite a slope right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the road will be completely closed.
Really glad. And yes, no problem. I'll drive around Route 1 for a year if that's what it requires.
Nice.
It's anticipated that the mobilization will happen in November.
Okay.
And they'll be done with the primary work for it. Paving is the issue. So when the plant's open, they'll be able to pave. So sometime by June 1st. So that's the window in which we're looking at, November to June. I still need to work with our contractor about snowplow on both sides.
And we turn around somewhere.
Right.
The road is a loop connects to Dodge Road.
Right, so the residents have access to back to Route 1 on either way. That's not the concern. It's more just about, you know, if our contractor normally does a snowplow route that runs all the way down to the end of Newcastle, turns around.
Yeah.
There's one side that I have to figure out.
Right, because usually they spin around right there at the town
I
line.
heard that neighbor is pretty easy going.
I hear that. I hear that. I gotta have some conversations, so I know. I just have to have those conversations. That's all.
It's great.
So if you're available Tuesday, October 14th to come and participate in the special town meeting and you're in attendance today, it'd be great to have you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? No,
No, I'll have to ask you guys to pop in and sign this one because
because we're amending it. Yeah, of course, of course. So motion to approve with the amendment of the one word inclusion count. Okay, let's take a vote. All those in favor?
Yep.
5 in favor, motion passes. Item 6C, personnel policy. I'm gonna let Kevin just explain this, so why don't you go?
Sure.
Kevin?
So this is the second time you're seeing this. The first time you saw it as an introduction. I wasn't in attendance for that meeting. Michelle stepped in for me. And she's carried this forward. This initially was brought up in part because of the payment in lieu of time off.
Mhm.
You know, that was set up initially where it's only one time a year. And how do you address emergencies or real needs? So that was the first change. Michelle, in the read through, also noticed some issues with our health insurance plan titles and change of income protection the town covers. So that's really what this covers. You technically are supposed, based on the policy, wait 30 days to allow staff to review and make comments. Casey did supply or ask a question about one element of it related to the definition of firefighters and how they fall. That's described in that draft, which explains it. It's tied to state statute language for that. So other than that, there were no other comments that came from staff. So we just asked for your approval of those amendments.
The income protection is a change that the town would be paying for more of. That's
Yes,
a different.
it's a couple $100. I think because there's discrepancies over some having it and some not. Be nice to clean that up.
There's no mention in the personal policy of dental vision insurance. What's the scoop on that? Oops.
Shit'll find.
The income protection, they should have note, it's like, if everybody. 3 full-time employees, if they all have it, it's about $600 a year. Like, it's like, population. But yeah,
EPL does not cover that.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
You'd be allowed to continue fringe business such as health and dental insurance at the employee's own expense. That's all I could find. No, it doesn't have any.
I definitely, don't the employees pay for dental and vision?
Yes, I
itself?
do.
Yeah, because she had a comment that it was covered in the town. I didn't remember the town covering it.
Shell said that.
Yeah, in her side note.
What page are you on?
17. On income protection. See on the side, so the town pays for all vision, dental, IPP.
For IPP.
Long sentences, so the town pays for all vision, dental, IPP.
Related to. Employee wishes to. I'll have to have a conversation with her. It's unclear to me.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, because I was just wondering, she said, so we have to just deduct for this, but if they're already, I don't care whether they go up or not, but I mean, it looks like, I think they're already deducting for vision and dental. I don't know.
I can't
know you
answer
don't
that
know.
right
I know
now.
you don't
I'm
know.
sorry, Aaron. You can either approve it now and be done with it or postpone and I'll work with Michelle to further hash that out.
And it doesn't. It's not mentioned in here,
Is it,
so. So whatever we're voting, it doesn't change whether we pay for the vision and dental or not. It is what it is.
I think it's just tied to the income protection is what I think she's referring to here.
I mean, we're talking $600.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I was just getting clarification because.
No, that's
they don't-
fine. I'm wondering if we can move this along.
Yep, go ahead.
the town pays for
Yep.
3
With-
full-time
with-
employees to have
with the
some.
motion that Kevin resolves this,
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, like I said, it's not even mentioned in here, so I'm not changing anything related to the vision and dental.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just was curious.
I think she's referring to the IPP for vision and dental. Is what she's referring to. The employees pay their vision and dental,
Right,
but in income protection plan. That then is either covered by the town or then it has to be covered by the individual for IPP. Which,
portion of it was covered by the town, and then the increase was if they wanted the higher limit, yeah,
so it's about $300,
per 6 months.
so $600 a year. I'll talk to Michelle
Okay,
and clarify that. But if we can amend or approve it as is, and I can come back to you with any additional changes or clarification at least.
I'll move that we approve the proposed amendments to the personnel policy.
Second that.
Okay, any discussion? You wanna make an amendment to the motion?
no, I don't think I need to because it's not covered in the personnel policy. I'm not changing anything about that tonight, so that's fine.
Alright. Let's take a vote, all those in favor?
Sure.
Alright, motion passes for 5. So, item 7, new business, so the 2026 annual town meeting. FY 27 budget, so here's the question, we took a vote at our last annual meeting, kind of got the response from the town, which was that we were gonna do a,
Can I interrupt you? I'm sorry.
yes,
In the interest of time, I'd like to make a motion that we table this until our next meeting, since it's not pressing.
okay.
I'll second that.
Sorry, is
That's fine,
that
No.
okay?
that's fine by me, all those in favor of tabling this until next meeting?
Sure, when it doesn't affect our timeline, we're gonna be okay.
No,
Okay, let's get hands up again, please. All right, 5 in favor. We will table that.
there was 7B.
So now we have 7B.
This super,
Sharon's got something.
yeah, super quick, because we just need to think about it. Ellen has McFarland's been our CLC ambulance board appointment for the town for years. And she would like to be done after the budget meeting in November. So we need to think about finding somebody to replace her. So just be aware, if anyone wants to volunteer to be on the CLC ambulance board, that'd be awesome. They only meet quarterly, I think, or
When is her term up?
It's in November.
She's done in November.
Done
it's
in
done in
November.
November,
Okay,
right?
there you go.
It's their board.
It's
Yeah,
their
It's
board,
not,
right?
it's not like their budget committee, it's their.
No, it's their actual board. There's one person from each town on their board. And they make all the decisions, the financial stuff, all that, for the CLC ambulance. And then there's backups, like I go as a backup. And just to be there, as well. So there's other people that attend, but she is our voting member.
Yeah.
So,
It's an important role. We should have.
Yeah.
We should have representation there.
so just keep that in mind so that we can figure somebody out.
Okay.
But thank you, Ellen. She's done it for years and years and years.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So we have maybe a couple months to do that, figure out who's gonna fulfill that role, so. Okay, fiscal warrants, item 8A. So FY 26 AP warrant for the amount of $360,896.10.
I'll move the one.
Seconded.
It's the fifth warrant.
Excuse me?
It's the fifth warrant. Just the.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's-
Yeah.
It is the
Fine.
fifth one.
Okay, any discussion on this?
Like normal stuff.
Yeah, I think so. All right, let's take a vote. All those in favor? Okay, 5 in favor, motion passes. Okay, what else? I think we're down to manager's report. Kevin?
We submitted a risk reduction grant for about $3,000 to buy some security cameras and recorders. Hopefully we'll receive that and get some access to additional information we would like to have. The cameras that are in our town office are. Well, I shouldn't tell everybody that they're not operable. They totally work. I'd also like to get some cameras on this building. There's a lot of expensive equipment here. And it'd be nice to have, keep an eye on it. So that's one thing we've done. Hazard mitigation plan. So the towns in Lincoln County have been working to update a county-wide hazard mitigation plan. It's a critical document necessary to identify and work to address weather-related hazards in our communities. It's also necessary to have an updated document that reflects the needs of our communities in order to apply for state and federal grants. So we've been working pretty closely with Lincoln County. They've even solicited not just EMA staff, but also regional planning staff to help write this document. The draft of this document will be released on October 1st and made available for public comment all the way through the 10th. Reason I bring it up now is because we won't be meeting till the 14th. So I'll share this. I'll share with the link to everyone once the document is available. But I hope that people can take a look at what we've included for areas that might need some future mitigation grant research and planning and funding. So please take a look at Newcastle's items or locations in that document. And then we'll look to bring that full document into this board in December or early January for adoption. And then I mentioned before the MMA annual convention. I have heard peep from most people. If you're interested, there's still time to sign up. If not, okay. And then lastly, the Pumpkin Fest is coming up. That's October 10th through the 13th. So
It's not lastly,
no,
the logo voting on the website.
right. That is not lastly. You're right. There's also yes. Thank you for the
We
reminder.
want to get that out to everybody.
There's a logo design competition we did. There are a bunch of the versions of it in town office. If you haven't seen them, come in and make a community vote. We'll have them at the special town meeting too, for the final. If you haven't already signed up, we'll have them here for people to take a look at. But yeah, we'll look to hold that open for people to vote on until October 14th.
Okay.
Thank you. I can't think of everything
No,
for Mondays. There's a lot happening.
there is. We got a lot going on in town.
We do. All right, thank you.
Okay, that is everything on our agenda for business. Without objection, motion to move to adjourn this meeting.
No objection.
9:09.
9:09. Thank you guys for holding, for hanging in for this whole thing. They don't normally go quite this long.